table.
Madam Chair.
I can recall the vote on the motion to remove from the table, as in the fact that that would be rendered an invalid vote. Mr. List, do you care to restate your motion to remove from the tables?
I'm not sure I understand. I'd just like it removed from the table.
I would first make a motion to excuse Ms. Comartin from voting on removing from the table.
Well, I'll make that motion.
I think that's standard, because she's been precluded from
She just can't
from
vote.
this item.
Very good.
From the
Okay.
check, yeah.
So, motion to remove from the table by Ms. Vogt and Mr. Liss. I'll redo the roll call, Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Liss.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino.
Yes, no.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Stowski.
Yes.
Camp, yes. The check was removed from the table by a vote of 8-0.
I'll move approval of the check.
Motion by Mr. List to approve check number 1419.
Support.
Support by Ms. Vogt. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that when this went to the table, the question was asked of the city attorney for a determination on this. And I'm interested in hearing that determination. I would like to be able to put this behind us. I do have some questions and concerns with it, but I would like to ask Mr. Biernat if he could respond.
Yes.
Mr. Biernat, and your
Do not have an-
microphone, please.
Excuse me. I do not have an opinion for you today. I want to tell you all that having come here fairly recently, I did not have a historical viewpoint of this issue. And the last building authority meeting that we had, approximately a week ago, a certain history was related that I reviewed, and it turns out to be quite different than the history that is contained within the opinions and writings of my former or my predecessors. There are a number of times that the city attorney has addressed this matter, going back to last year and the moratorium that was imposed, etc. So I am going through all of these items, and I will have that opinion to you as quickly as possible, hopefully by next meeting.
Thank you, thank you. Like I said, I'm anxious to be able to put this behind us. I had questions, or I still have questions actually, and I want the determination. I don't want anybody, Ms. Christoph or Ms. Kumartin, to think that I'm picking on her, but it's, you know, we had lots of discussion as far as what is precedent in the law. You know, the federal law, the state law, the city law, charter, and so on and so forth. And my reason for not voting for this is because the charter, under section 4.6, compensation of officers, says the council shall fix, now this, just bear with me, the council shall fix the compensation of officers except as otherwise provided by law. The council shall not act to change the compensation of any elected officer after the 13th day preceding the date filing nomination of petitions for that office, or of an appointed officer serving for a definite term after his appointment. Reasonable expenses may be allowed to officers when actually incurred and after they've been audited by the controller, okay? That has been superseded by an ordinance, something, one of the lower laws, okay? But it still is higher than a a bylaw of something, okay, because it is a law of this city. And it was superseded by Warren Code, Chapter 2, under administration, Elected Officers Compensation Commission, and it basically says the same thing as the charter, except it goes on and it says, in cases of the city council rejects the commission's determination salaries, the existing salary shall prevail. No other compensation shall be paid to local elected officials. However, expenses incurred in the course of city business and accounted for to the city shall be reimbursed. That is the only question that I have concerning the reimbursement of expenses for Ms. Kumartin. There should be receipts. That's all I'm asking. That's what our ordinance says. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other comments from council members?
Madam Chair,
Ms. Vogt.
it's nice that Mr. Stevens has done his legal research. He should have issued a written opinion and passed it around to all of us and saved Mr. Biernat a whole lot of work. That being said, while we're waiting for the opinion to come back, I guess we should put this back on the table.
Support.
Motion to table by Ms. Vogt and a support to table by Mr. Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed, nay.
I'll do a roll call. Ms. Vogt.
Yes to table.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
No.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin? Oh, I'm sorry, forget that. Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The item has been tabled, 7-1.
Item number 9, approval of the building authority checks, meeting of May 3rd, 2011.
Need a motion and support for the payment of the building authority bills.
I'll move that we,
Motion by Mr. Liss. Support by Ms. Vogt.
Discussion.
Discussion, Mr. Stevens, then Ms. Comartin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These checks were approved at the meeting of May 3rd. At that meeting also, the building authority decided that they were no longer going to provide the checks for payment to the attendees of the building authority. They took this upon themselves.
Excuse
And
me,
yeah.
clarification. They were no longer going to provide the payment of checks to council or?
To council.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. Of the per diem checks that they write to themselves. I think this is in violation of the, being a clear and open government and transparency of government. I'm appalled that they would take it upon themselves to, because we questioned one of their checks. Now they're no longer going to send those checks to us. And although I will vote for the payment of this check because this is somebody's security deposit from, Stillwell or Joe Coach Manor, I think it is atrocious that they would do such a thing. And that's all I have to say on it. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Comartin, then Mr. Bacamino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question through the chair to the city attorney. Is it legal for the council to hold up a check or any checks that were issued by the building authority, who is semi-autonomous? Is it legal for council to do that after the full board votes on the checks and passes them unanimously?
Well, I touched on that earlier in my remarks. It appears that at the last building authority, a history was given by one of the participants as to the submission of checks to the city council. Upon review of of the building authority records, I find that that history doesn't comport with the history as contained within the building authority minutes and notes and opinions, et cetera, that are contained within that, going back, as I said, to last year's moratorium. So do I have an opinion? I am in the process of trying to reach an opinion, but this has been the subject of many inquiries and written opinions of one sort or another. And I don't even think we have, at this point, a consensus as to what the history was. It was presented to myself that the history was that the building authority submitted these checks because they wanted to be transparent, and they had no obligation to do so. It turns out that last year, I believe, that there was a controversy between this body and the building authority, and that's when the moratorium was put in effect. So it's a vastly different story than the story those 3 commissioners received from the participant. So I'm trying to piece together and come to an understanding of what the history is and an opinion that addresses this matter and puts it to rest for once and for all.
Thank you very much, City Attorney Biernatt. I can understand what Councilman Stevens is saying, but with all due respect, Councilman Stevens, I do know this is a political season. I think this has been made, so to speak, a joke or an insult. I don't think it should be treated in that fashion. The reason why these checks are on here now is to have transparency in government. And then because it became political, I think a lot of the board members felt that they didn't really want to go there. You know, it shouldn't be made a political situation. When a board that is authorized through the state, and we've been getting into these laws a lot where state law supersedes charter, and I know you're referring to the ordinance, but let's face the fact, when this goes back to 1980s, and this is the way this board has operated since the 1980s, and now council is making an issue out of it, and we had the bylaws and the articles of incorporation that were brought forward to council in August, and no one, not one council person up here, did anything with those when we did receive them. So if this council body really wanted to change it at that time, then you should change it. And I'll tell you what, I am an independent contractor. I do not work as a union employee like you or Mr. Bacamino. With all due respect, I have to leave my job. If I leave my job, I'm on a commission basis. I do not have any type of, recouping that. So I got on the building authority. I really didn't know what it was about when I first got into it. And then as people changed and people left that handled it, the whole thing changed. And I think this council took responsibility to make it more transparent and really opened up to the audience and really had members, that would let the audience speak freely. So I just don't want this to become political.